All right. Well, the end is near. Our exam is in this room Friday at 2 p.m., about 50 hours from now. Today we will go over some of the sample questions and we'll talk about what to expect on the exam. This morning I opened the homework collection link on Scholar. Note that I'm not asking you to upload samples of all of your homework. I just asked for the Chapter 7 stuff. If for some reason the Chapter 7 stuff doesn't really represent your best work, feel free to submit several assignments from the most recent section that you do feel like represented your best work. Hopefully something from Chapter 6, if not Chapter 7. Yeah, here we are at the end. Any logistical questions? Just think, another 52 hours and you can be done with this. And then, of course, you can think more clearly your entire life. So hopefully you will benefit from it. All right, so today I'll start by going over the sample, the sort of representative sample questions, and then we can open it up to any questions about anything course related, anything exam related. So we'll start with that, okay? All right, so on the exam, we will go all the way back to the beginning and we'll talk about Aristotelian syllogisms. We'll talk about, there will be some translations, there'll be some syllogisms requiring the STAR test. You'll need to remember your 8 well-formed formulae from Chapter 2. So, sample translation, Voldemort is the most powerful wizard. Remember, when translating in Aristotelian syllogisms, the most important issue is determining whether the topic we're discussing is a specific thing or whether it is a more general category. General categories get capital letters, specific things get lowercase letters. The most common type of thing that gets lowercase letters, of course, are proper nouns, specific persons, places, or things. However, there are other things that are implicitly specific things because there is only one. For example, superlatives, anything that is the most, greatest, tallest, shortest, coldest, reddest, hippest, and so forth. Anything that is a superlative, there can be only one. Also, use of the definite article the typically is an indicator that we are talking about a specific one. So Voldemort is the most powerful is the most powerful wizard. We use a lowercase v for Voldemort because just one super creepy guy, thing, lizard, person. Voldemort is the most powerful wizard. How many most powerful wizards are there? Well, by definition of the superlatives, there should be only one, and that should also be a lowercase w. Additionally, the use of the word the should be yet another hint that that second term needs to be lowercase. So I encourage you to look back to Chapter 2, review the 8 well-formed formulae. Remember, there are 5 words in Aristotelian logic, and the 3 most important are all, no, or some are the 3 words that can appear at the beginning of an Aristotelian well-formed formulae. And then you've got is and not are the words that can appear in the middle of an Aristotelian well-formed formula. I also encourage you to go to 2.4 and review the translation rules for the harder translation patterns. And I would just outright memorize the patterns in the boxes especially the ones that are unusual, like those that use the word only, words that like the no one unless, which is actually an all statement because the no one and the unless kind of cancel each other out. So go back. You can also, get online, look at what you did in test one and what you struggled with. So review, and especially review the things you had trouble with. All right, number 2. All anti-disestablishmentarians are conservatives. No conservatives are revolutionaries. Thus, some anti-disestablishmentarians are not revolutionaries. All right, what do we have here? All A is C. No C is R. Thus, some anti-disestablishmentarians are not revolutionaries. Some A is not R. All right, so that is the proper translation. We will do the star test on this. We distribute the A after the all, both terms after the no, and the R after the not. We then star the distributed terms in the premises and the undistributed term in the conclusion. Then we ask, is there exactly one star on the right? Yes. And we ask, is every capital letter starred exactly once? And we say, uh-oh. We say no. That is invalid. Also, if you just think about it abstractly, when you have an argument that has 2 universal premises, the conclusion should have a universal premise, and a sum statement is not a universal premise. So, yet another way of seeing that this should be invalid. All right, let's look at another sample. No P are M, some S are not M, therefore some S are not P. No P are M, no P is M. Want to be strict. Some S is not M. Some S is not P. Distribute, star. Is every capital letter starred exactly once? We have a problem. We have 2 stars on the M. We also have 2 stars on the right instead of just 1. So the correct answer is this argument is invalid because there are multiple stars on the right-hand side. So review that early section, chapter 2. All right, we will also do propositional arguments and translations. So this is the other sort of argument, which is not constrained to the 8 Aristotelian patterns. Harry will graduate only if he's not expelled. So here is that only word. If normally introduces the left term of an arrow statement, only if introduces the right term of an arrow statement. So Harry will graduate. If Harry graduates, that means he was not expelled. Harry will be expelled for using magic in front of muggles. E. Therefore, Harry will not graduate. Not G. This is the proper translation. And note that this is the This is called the modus tollens rule. We have an arrow statement. The second premise is the opposite of the right half. We get the opposite of the left half. So it is a valid inference. I'm gonna skip. Oh yeah, so there'll also be some S rules and I rules. Here is negated triple bar. So we've got negated P. It is not the case of P only if and only if Q. And from that we can derive either P or Q, but not both P and Q. In other words, one of them is true, but both of them cannot both be true. I'm going to skip the proof, but just remember proofs and refutations, all of 7.1 through 7.4 are fair game for this exam. Did we talk about this last time? All right, let's talk about this. So this is, again, this is building deductively sound arguments from premises. The easiest way to do this is to first translate this into propositional logic. Either the butler or the maid did it, B or M. If the maid did it, she didn't have an alibi. If M, then not A. 75% of all crimes are committed by the butler. Probabilistic arguments, probabilistic premises don't work with propositional arguments for deductively sound proofs. Remember, deductively sound means the conclusion must have 100% certainty, so we can know we're not going to use that premise. So we can just skip that. If the butler did it, he didn't have an alibi. If B, then not H. Can anyone tell me why I did a not H instead of a not A over here? It's because I need a different term for the butler not having an alibi versus the maid not having an alibi. So there's just no sort of non-referential not having an alibi. It's a specific person that doesn't have the alibi. So this is the maid not having the alibi. This is the butler not having the alibi. And finally, the butler had an alibi. H. All right, so create a deductively sound argument. Well, I might want to just prove not B. How would I prove not B? Well, I would take if B, then not H, and H, and I would infer out not B. And that would be sufficient to build a deductively sound argument from these premises. Now, if I wanted, I could go farther and prove more. If I wanted, I could, instead of stopping with not B, I could prove M. How do I prove M? Well, I would use B or M and not B to get M. I could also prove not A. How can I prove not A? From M, and if M, then not A. I could prove not A. So there are several right things that you could do from that. Several sound arguments you could build. All right, propositional translations. Here is another one using that nasty, nasty word only. Only introduces what? Only if introduces what? The second term. So this is going to be an arrow statement with a C in the second spot. Now remember, only introduces the second term. Just if is different. Just if is a triple bar indicator. And if on its own just usually indicates the left side of a conditional statement. Again, I recommend you review the rules for translation found on, let me see, where is this found? Chapter 5. I think this is chapter 5. Now it's early chapter 6. So yeah, I would review the translation rules in chapter 6 for propositional logic.
I think it's just before that.
Specifically, the rules found in 6.8. 6.8 is what I was looking for, that had some of the trickier ones, which is just before the yes and I rules. All right, inductive arguments. Remember, we had a whole chapter 5, on inductive arguments. Here's an inductive argument. Fewer than 1% of popular 19th century authors were women. Mary Shelley could not have been a popular author because she was a 19th century woman. This is a bad argument. This argument is weak because, well, the conclusion's too strong. What's wrong with the conclusion? Well, the conclusion says she can't have been a popular author, but guess what? The premise says there's a 1% chance that she could have been a popular author. And in fact, those of you who read 19th century literature know that Mary Shelley was a very popular author. She is the author of Frankenstein. That's right. Now, this argument in 9 is a mediocre attempt at a statistical syllogism. It's not a deductively valid argument. It's trying to argue using probabilistic arguments, using probabilistic reasoning. It's not inductively strong. There's no analogy. And of course, don't forget, we had a section on the fallacies. And here is one of them. There's no evidence that abolishing the death penalty will not increase the crime rate. So therefore, we must conclude that if we abolish the death penalty, the crime rate will increase. This is a classic example of appeal to ignorance. It moves from there's no evidence, therefore, my view must be true, or we must assume my view. Beware of people who want to conclude things based on no evidence. Number 10, it is an attempt at a statistical syllogism. It tries to use a statistical premise to derive a conclusion. It's not a very good statistical syllogism. That's what he's trying to do. All right, well, those are some representative sample questions of the type of questions that will be on the final. Yes?
Back in number 7, if we wanted to keep our answer in noun form, would that be okay?
I think that's fine. I mean, again, as long as you can build a deductively sound argument. I mean, obviously, if you've got if the butler did it, he didn't have an alibi, and the butler had an alibi. Therefore, the butler couldn't have done it. That would be just fine. Because in part, these are the sort of core claims that we write larger papers about. This is how you should be able to summarize the point of an editorial, the core kernel claim of a political argument or an editorial, or even someone just trying to close a sale. So the more you can do that, the better. Well, what else do you want to ask me? You got me for, yes.
I was going over definitions, and
really just need to like a refresher on that about where it's talked about whether definition is too broad, whether it's too narrow, etc.
Here, I'm gonna make this real easy for you. There will be no questions of that type on the exam.
Okay, then completely.
No need to ignore you. I think you can breathe a sigh of relief, and so can some other people. There will be no what's wrong with this definition in the form of, this is too broad, this is too narrow. This is circular.
Probabilities.
Yeah, we just did that on the last exam. I don't think we need more probabilities on the final, except, stuff like, it can appear in something like, I might give you a probabilistic premise and you need to know not to use it for a deductively sound argument. Or, if there's a statistical syllogism, but nothing you're going to need a calculator for. I'm not going to ask you, like, what are the odds of getting the jack of diamonds after getting 2 kings? So nothing like that. That must be about my car's extended warranty. It's going to expire any day now. My car is 20 years old. All right, other questions? How are we doing? Let's just have the conversation that way. How are we doing about the final? Everyone feeling pretty good? Let's not trust our feelings too much, but this will wrap it all up. How many of you went to the tutor session last night? How'd that go? Was that helpful? Yeah, tutor's great. Yes.
Could you go over the proof?
Sure. Why don't we do the proof? All right. So we're going to try to prove B from these premises. And I'm not going to rewrite the given premises. I'm just going to proceed. So what do we do first? We will always assume the opposite of the conclusion. We're trying to prove B, so we're going to assume not B. When we get a direct contradiction, that will enable us to derive the intended conclusion B. We try to do S&I rules. We look at number 1. We have a triple bar, which will give us 2 inferences. Triple bar gives us if A, then not B, and if not B, then A. Then we try to use our S rules again. We'll look at number 2, and then we will use our negated triple bar. Number 2 is it is not the case of if A then B, so either A or B, but not both, negated A and B. All right, now I need to do an inference using 6, 7, 8, or 9, and in truth, there's a couple of options. And I'm just going to use this negated B, and I'm going to plug it to if negated B, then A. And that will give me my 10 from 5 and 7. And once I've got that, not line 10 says A, but line 3 says not A, which is a direct logical contradiction. And we can infer out the opposite of the most recent conclusion, B, from 5, because 3 and 10 contradict. There you go. Now, note, this was one of those things where, one of those problems where there's actually several right ways to proceed. So let's say we didn't want to get A in step 10. What else could we have done? Well, maybe that was the most obvious way to proceed. Yeah, that, unless we wanted to make multiple assumptions, that probably was the best way to do it. Yes.
So we're gonna be like typing that.
Yeah, there'll be like an open text box. Oh, and here's a warning. Since the computer will not be able to auto grade proofs and things like the build a deductively sound argument, I'm going to try to turn off the settings so that it doesn't give you a grade automatically. Because if it does, the grade will be misleading. It will be the grade on the points that weren't like the proof open text type in type things. So like it might be, so let's say 40 points are proofs, refutations, and things like build deductively sound arguments. Well, then the test might say you got 50. Put it to 50 out of an available 60 points. So it'd be like, based on what's graded so far, you've got 90. But so all that to say, I'm going to try to turn off that auto grade function. If somehow I miss it, just know, don't trust any initial grade it gives you, because that is the grade without adding the points that you got for things like proofs, refutations, anything typed in. I think my scholar skills are good enough that I will have that function turned off, but lately it just feels like technology hates my guts. Anything else? Any specific problems? Yes.
Oh, I don't know if it's a good one, but any questions
I don't know that off the top of my head. I haven't finalized it. I mean, it'll be a little longer. I mean, you have 2.5 hours for this instead of 50 minutes. I mean, it might be 40 to 50 multiple choice, and couple proofs, couple refutations, one build a deductively sound argument. So I think, let's say, expect 40 to 50 multiple choice, 2 proofs, 2 refutations, or so. One of those build your own deductively sound arguments. I mean, I'm going to give you enough. I will take most people about an hour. Some people will take up to an hour and a half. It shouldn't really take anyone more than an hour and a half. Usually there's like one person that is there that lasts, between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours. And if that's you, that's fine. But generally people aren't going to do that.
What is the answer to question 10?
The answer to question 10. Which one is question 10? Oh, this is a statistical syllogism that's trying to make an argument based on statistics. Incompetently, but that's what it's trying to do. Yes?
What would an inductively strong argument look like?
An inductively strong argument would be something like this. LeBron James makes 85% of his free throw attempts. He's about to step up and shoot a free throw shot. Therefore, there is at least an 85% chance he will make this free throw. That's what an inductively strong argument makes. And to be strong, so inductive means that it's not one of these all or nothing arguments. Strong means it's arguing with a probability of more than 50%. Now, note there are inductively weak arguments that are still arguments that are worth using and knowing. So let's say I'm playing cards and I need like an ace to hit the jackpot, a highly disproportionately large jackpot. Whatever the odds are, it'll be like 4 and 52 or something. those aren't, the odds won't be better than 50%, but it's still important to know what the odds are of getting that. So that would be an inductively weak argument that I will get an ace. But still, it might be the most likely outcome or the best outcome or an outcome worth taking a risk on. And that's the difference between somebody who knows how to win money at gambling and those that don't, is when you know how to benefit from a small advantage, even if it's less than a 50% probability. Well, let me say this. Hey, this has been a hard semester, and I want to acknowledge that. I want to thank you that came and persevered substantially, consistently. I get it. This class is hard under good circumstances, and this year's, it stunk. Pandemic stinks. I can't wait to get past this. Word is that next year will be at least closer to normal. I don't know if it will be completely normal, but definitely be fewer COVID-related things. So thank you for your persistence. If I can be helpful, shoot me an email and I'll try to get back to you. If you're still lost on something, let me know and I'll try to throw you a lifeline. All right? All right. Thank you all. Congratulations, you've persevered to the end. 2 more days. Good luck. And then do something fun for the summer. You deserve it.